The truth doesn't just reveal, it exposes, it terrifies, and it refuses to be ignored. Right now, there's someone out there who thought they could twist reality, manipulate perception, and corner you like prey. They built a world of lies, thinking it would cage you, thinking no one would notice. But here's the truth. People already see it. Studies show that the human brain detects deceit almost instantaneously, often before words are even spoken. That means every attempt to frame, slander, or target you is failing spectacularly in real time, and everyone around them is watching the unraveling like it's the season finale of a psychological thriller. And let's be honest, there's something almost comical in seeing someone work so hard to make you look bad, only to end up exposing themselves. It's like watching a cat try to herd humans, awkward, frantic, and utterly doomed. But unlike the humor of the situation, the stakes are very real. This isn't just about embarrassment, it's about who controls perception, truth, and ultimately who stands untouchable at the center while their plot collapses around them. By the end of this, you'll see exactly why people are now labeling them as unstable, obsessive, and yes, borderline psycho, and why no amount of lies can keep up with the reality you carry. Every move they make, every word they spin is a reflection of their own unraveling, and you are the immovable constant that exposes it all. Number one, they're collapsing under the weight of their own invented reality. They're collapsing under the weight of their own invented reality. Every lie they spun to try to trap or control you is now turning into a trap for themselves. What they thought would give them power is unraveling in front of everyone's eyes. The more they try to maintain their stories, the more impossible it becomes to keep track of what's true and what's fabricated. Each new lie builds on the last, creating a web so tangled that even they can no longer navigate it without stumbling. People around them start to notice inconsistencies, contradictions, and bizarre behavior. And slowly, the mask they wore so confidently begins to slip. It's not that anyone is plotting against them, it's that reality has its own way of exposing deception. Their obsession with controlling perception has blinded them to how obvious it all looks. What was meant to make you look weak or unstable is now highlighting their own instability. Every conversation, every social interaction, every attempt to manipulate a situation becomes a showcase of their desperation and mental strain. Observers can see the anxiety behind their words, the tension behind their actions, the fear of being exposed. The more frantic their attempts, the more visible their collapse becomes. People start whispering, judging, and sharing stories that were never meant to leave private circles. And suddenly, the whole world is witnessing the fall of someone who once seemed untouchable. Their invented reality is no longer a shield. It's a prison. They are trapped in the stories they told, forced to defend lies that can't hold. And the worst part for them is that it isn't just about being caught in a single lie, it's about the cumulative effect of years of deceit catching up at once. The weight of that constructed world is heavy, and it's breaking them piece by piece. Meanwhile, you remain steady, unaffected, untouchable, because none of this chaos is about you. It's about them losing control over themselves. People see it, they talk about it, and the label they fear, unstable, obsessive psycho, starts to stick naturally. Not because anyone is exaggerating, but because it's the honest reflection of their own collapse. The lies were meant to give them power over you, but instead they've become the chains that hold them down. And every failed attempt is another crack in the foundation of their invented reality. Number two, every attempt to control you is now public evidence of their instability. Every attempt they make to control you is now public evidence of their instability. What they thought would be a secret campaign, something subtle and unnoticed, has turned into a glaring display of desperation. Every word, every action meant to manipulate or undermine you is now on display for others to see, and the irony is brutal. They are trying to create an image of dominance, but instead, they're broadcasting their fear and obsession for the world to witness. People around them don't need to dig or investigate deeply. The cracks in their behavior are obvious. Nervous gestures, over-explained excuses, contradictions in stories, everything they do to cover up their intentions only reinforces the perception that they are unbalanced. Each failed attempt at manipulation adds another layer to the very image they are trying to hide. What was supposed to make them look in control instead screams out their lack of control. The more they push, the more chaotic their presence becomes, and the audience, friends, colleagues, and even strangers can sense it instinctively. It doesn't take a trained eye to see the desperation behind their actions. Their instability becomes self-evident because it is consistent. Patterns emerge that reveal obsession, pettiness, and a fixation that can't be explained as casual concern. People start connecting the dots without needing your side of the story, and the picture that emerges is clear. Someone is dangerously unhinged and focused entirely on you. Even minor acts, when viewed in the larger context, become proof of their unraveling. Trying to control your narrative backfires because the world sees them trying so hard, overcompensating in ways that are both obvious and alarming. Their instability isn't hidden, it is magnified with every move they make. What they once hoped would intimidate or confuse others now convinces everyone that the problem is not you, it's them. Their obsession, their lies, their constant attempts at manipulation become self-documenting evidence of mental and emotional instability. They are creating a record of themselves unraveling in real time. And the more they struggle to maintain a false image, the more visible their instability becomes. While they thought they were orchestrating control, they've inadvertently created a showcase of their own fragility, and the world is watching every moment of it. Number 3. Their lies are turning into mirrors that show who they really are. Their lies are turning into mirrors that show who they really are. Every story they've spun, every accusation, every attempt to twist reality has begun to reflect back on them instead of their target. They wanted to shape perception, to create fear or doubt, but what they didn't realize is that the truth has a way of revealing the teller. The more they insist on a narrative that isn't real, the more people notice the cracks between what they say and what actually exists. Their obsession becomes visible, their insecurities obvious, and their need to control exposed. What they hoped would make them look strong only highlights their weakness. Lies are heavy, and carrying them demands energy, attention, and focus. Over time, their behavior becomes erratic because sustaining a false reality is exhausting. Every detail they try to fabricate, every conversation they manipulate, adds weight to a reflection they cannot escape. Others see the patterns, the overreactions, the contradictions, the constant defensiveness. What they wanted to hide is now on display, and those around them begin to understand the truth without even needing confirmation from you. Their actions speak louder than the words they tried to plant, revealing an obsession that borders on compulsion. People start to recognize the signs of someone who is over-invested in controlling another person, and that recognition translates to judgment. Their lies no longer protect them, they expose them. Even casual observers begin to understand the imbalance, the irrational focus, and the underlying insecurity that drives it all. Every attempt to spin the story, to maintain the illusion, only makes the mirror clearer. Their own reflection shows a person consumed by envy, fear, and a desperate need to dominate, which is exactly the opposite of what they intended. And the most striking part is how automatic this process is. They don't realize they're providing the evidence themselves. Their actions, designed to distort reality, are now the proof of their obsession, instability, and lack of control. People aren't just seeing what they do, they're seeing who they are. Their identity, once hidden behind lies, is now transparent, and it's not flattering. Every interaction, every conversation, every attempt at manipulation is a brushstroke in a portrait of their own unraveling, a portrait that others can't unsee. In trying to define you, they have inadvertently defined themselves, and the world is watching. Number 4, you are the magnet that reveals their weaknesses. Their presence in your life acts like a mirror, reflecting not what you are, but what they are trying and failing to hide. Every attempt they make to target, intimidate, or manipulate you doesn't just fizzle out. It backfires, highlighting cracks in their own character that were previously invisible. They think their schemes are clever, their lies hidden, their control absolute. In reality, each move they make becomes evidence of their own flaws. Their anger, overreactions, and desperate attempts at influence show the world that their instability is not just internal, it's visible, tangible, and undeniable. You didn't instigate the drama, yet your steady presence forces them to confront it anyway. They struggle to maintain a facade, and every slip, every inconsistency, every small moment of overcompensation becomes a spotlight, exposing them to everyone around. People begin to notice patterns. The overzealous attention, the petty attacks, the obsessive need to be seen as powerful. These are the things they never wanted anyone to see, yet their fixation on you broadcasts them louder than words ever could. The more they try to control or target you, the more obvious their weaknesses become. It's like their energy is being used against themselves. Every lie they tell, every manipulation attempt, every calculated move requires effort, focus, and attention. But instead of destabilizing you, it destabilizes them. The obsession becomes consuming, leaving no space for clarity or self-awareness, and their own flaws start to dominate every action. The very traits they hope to mask, jealousy, insecurity, arrogance, volatility, shine brighter than ever. People start piecing together a picture of someone unraveling, not because of you, but because of their own behavior. You are not just untouchable. You are the unavoidable truth that forces them into exposure. They can try to deflect, justify, or intimidate, but nothing works. Their character weaknesses are now on full display, plain for anyone to see. You remain steady, strong, and grounded while they flail, trying desperately to regain control. Your presence doesn't create chaos. It illuminates it, revealing every flaw they thought could stay hidden. And in that light, the world sees clearly. The problem was never you. The problem has always been them. Number 5. Everyone notices the disconnect between their words and reality. The moment someone starts saying one thing but acting in a completely different way, people notice it, even if they can't put it into words immediately. Human intuition is wired to detect inconsistencies, and repeated contradictions between what they claim and what actually exists create a visible tension that can't be ignored. Every exaggeration, every false accusation, every attempt to manipulate is weighed against the truth that surrounds you. People instinctively sense when reality doesn't line up with their narrative, and the more they try to force a story that isn't real, the more obvious their disconnect becomes. This isn't subtle, it's like a pattern forming in plain sight. Friends, colleagues, even casual observers begin to notice that something is off. What they intended as a controlled message to influence perception now backfires, leaving their credibility in tatters. The gap between their words and reality doesn't just make them look unreliable, it makes them appear unstable. People start questioning their motives, their judgment, and even their mental state. Every lie they tell, every story they spin becomes a contrast against the clarity and truth that you live openly. Observers don't need to analyze deeply, they can feel it instinctively. There's a tension between what's said and what's real, and that tension reflects poorly on them, not you. The more they try to reinforce their narrative, the more the world sees the desperation behind it. Their attempts to control perception highlight their own irrationality and obsession. They may think they're pulling strings or guiding opinions, but in reality their behavior acts as evidence of instability. Eventually, this disconnect becomes undeniable. People begin to share observations, to connect dots, and to quietly or openly call out the inconsistencies. Their credibility erodes piece by piece, and the perception that they are obsessive, controlling, or even psychologically unbalanced becomes self-evident. While they scramble to maintain control over their image, the world is already drawing conclusions based on observable reality, not the lies they feed. The more they push, the more the disconnect widens, and the more apparent it becomes that their credibility is collapsing under the weight of their own deception. Their words no longer hold power because reality and the people who witness it will always speak louder than lies. Number 6, their obsession with you becomes their own prison. Every attempt they make to control or manipulate you slowly turns against them, creating a trap they cannot escape. In their mind, they thought they were the predator, but in reality, they've become the prisoner. Each lie they told, each scheme they plotted, each effort to infiltrate your life adds another bar to the cage they are building around themselves. Their obsession consumes them entirely, leaving no space for rational thought, self-reflection, or even basic calm. Every action meant to destabilize you only tightens the grip of their own mental and emotional confinement. People around them begin to notice the patterns, the pacing, the overthinking, the repeated attempts to insert themselves where they don't belong. It becomes clear that their energy is not spent on productive or normal endeavors, but entirely focused on tracking, influencing, or undermining you. Their behavior starts to look erratic, desperate, and obsessive. The more they try to escape the consequences of their actions, the deeper they sink into the prison they constructed themselves. Others watching don't see a calculated mastermind, they see someone trapped by their own fixation. The label psycho isn't an exaggeration or an insult in this context. It's a logical conclusion drawn from observation. Their actions, driven by obsession, are irrational, unstable, and harmful to themselves. What was meant to intimidate or manipulate you has backfired entirely. The world sees a person imprisoned not by external forces, but by their own compulsion. Every lie, every attempt to control, every act of intimidation is a brick in the walls that surround them. Meanwhile, you remain unaffected, free, and clear. Their chaos does not touch you because you are not the one ensnared, they are. In trying to dominate your life, they've surrendered control over their own. Their obsession, once hidden beneath the surface, now defines them publicly, and the reality of their self-made prison is undeniable. They are caught in a loop of fear, envy, and fixation that they cannot break, and the more they struggle, the more visible their entrapment becomes. You are the calm, steady presence that exists outside their cage, witnessing the unraveling of someone who thought they could control you, only to find themselves completely confined by the very obsession they created. Number 7, every lie adds to their own isolation. Each false story, each exaggeration, each attempt to manipulate the narrative doesn't just fail to reach its intended target, it pushes away anyone who might have otherwise supported or even tolerated them. The more they escalate, the more apparent it becomes that their actions are driven by obsession, not reason. People instinctively sense when someone is over-focused on another person in a way that's unhealthy, and what might have been curiosity or mild concern turns into distance and distrust. Every lie they tell is a brick in the wall separating them from social trust, empathy, and credibility. Their attempts to control perception or sabotage your reputation backfire spectacularly because obsession is visible. It spreads, but not in the way they want. Instead of drawing people to their cause, it repels them. Friends, acquaintances, colleagues, and even casual observers begin to question their motives and character. They notice the contradictions, the exaggerations, the overreactions, and instead of sympathizing, people start to step back. The network of support they might have relied on begins to crumble, replaced by quiet judgment, avoidance, or even ridicule. Social credibility, once assumed or maintained through appearances, evaporates under the weight of repeated deceit. What makes it worse for them is that this isolation reinforces their own obsession. Feeling cut off, they double down, believing that if they try harder, they can regain control. Every failed attempt only intensifies the fixation, creating a vicious cycle. The lies pile up. The obsession grows, and with it, the separation from reality and from the people who might have seen them in a better light. Their world becomes smaller, narrower, and lonelier with every act of manipulation. Meanwhile, you remain unaffected, moving freely within reality while they shrink into a self-imposed social vacuum. What was meant to harm you becomes the mechanism that destroys their social standing. Their own obsession isolates them, exposes their instability, and removes any potential allies they might have had. In trying to control the narrative about you, they have cut themselves off from the narrative of life itself, leaving only a hollow, self-created bubble of obsession, paranoia, and growing loneliness. Number 8, their inconsistencies are an open book for others to read. Every contradiction, every sudden change in story, every overreaction is recorded, noticed, and remembered by those around them. When confronted with facts, they don't stay consistent. They fumble, adjust, or overcompensate, revealing more than they intended. Each reaction adds another line to the pattern of their behavior, a pattern that anyone paying attention can follow without needing your perspective. Their attempts to manipulate perception, control narratives, or justify their actions only highlight the inconsistencies. Every lie, every exaggeration, every denial is a piece of evidence they are unwittingly providing. People are naturally adept at detecting patterns, and repeated contradictions form a clear picture of obsession and instability. What they hope will confuse or intimidate others ends up doing the opposite. Observers begin to map their behavior, noticing the repeated cycles of falsehood, defensiveness, and emotional escalation. The more they try to cover themselves, the more transparent they become. Even casual acquaintances start to recognize the signs. Sudden shifts in tone, over-explained excuses, stories that don't line up with reality. Each of these moments reinforces the perception that their behavior is erratic, extreme, and unhealthy. The psycho label doesn't need to be applied artificially, it emerges naturally from observation. Their own inconsistencies provide the evidence and the world interprets it logically. People see someone obsessed, unstable, and trapped in their own web of lies. It's not your responsibility to point it out. The pattern speaks for itself. The more they attempt to maintain control or manipulate perception, the more obvious their psychological unraveling becomes. Their inconsistencies are not minor, they are cumulative. Each small slip adds to the larger story, and the audience, consciously or subconsciously, pieces together the truth. Attempts to appear rational or in control fail spectacularly, because their actions contradict their words repeatedly. What they hoped would secure influence or instill doubt instead confirms the opposite. They are fixated, irrational, and completely transparent to anyone paying attention. In trying to hide their obsession, they've written it clearly in plain sight. Their behavior becomes a textbook example of self-exposure, where every effort to manipulate the world around them only makes them more visible, more predictable, and more undeniably unstable. Number 9. You are the unmovable constant in their chaos. No matter how hard they try to provoke, manipulate, or intimidate you, nothing works. Every scheme, every attempt to destabilize your life fails because your presence remains steady, consistent, and unshakable. This consistency isn't just frustrating for them, it's terrifying. They feed on control, on bending circumstances and people to their will, and your immunity to their tactics exposes their powerlessness in the most glaring way. The more they push, the more obvious it becomes to everyone that their efforts are futile. Others can see it clearly. People notice the contrast between their frantic attempts to dominate and your calm, grounded demeanor. Every overreaction, every desperate lie, every erratic move they make is thrown into stark relief against your stability. You become the lens through which their instability is magnified. Their obsession, paranoia, and irrational behavior are highlighted not by your words, but by the unwavering strength you display simply by existing without being shaken. Observers begin to understand the truth instinctively. The chaos isn't coming from you, it's coming from them, and you are the reason it's so visible. Your unmovable presence also forces them into patterns of overexposure. In trying to force reactions from you, they reveal their weaknesses and insecurities to everyone around them. They try to corner you, intimidate you, or manipulate circumstances, but your stability acts like a mirror, reflecting their flaws outward. Every failed attempt only adds to the evidence of their obsession and instability. The more they escalate, the more apparent it becomes that the problem has never been you, it has always been them. Being the constant in their chaos doesn't require confrontation, arguments, or demonstrations of strength. It's your refusal to be drawn into their games, your ability to remain steady while they spiral, that makes the difference. You are the immovable force in a storm they created, and in that dynamic, your power is undeniable. They can try to manipulate, lie, or provoke, but nothing sticks. And while they burn energy attempting the impossible, you remain untouched, unshaken, and fully aware, leaving them exposed, frustrated, and increasingly unhinged. Number 10. Their reputation fades while your truth expands. Every attempt they make to smear you, twist reality, or manipulate perception ends up bouncing back on them. Lies have a weight. And when they fail to land, that weight doesn't disappear. It crushes the credibility of the one who tried to wield it. The more they push false narratives, the clearer the contrast becomes between your integrity and their chaos. What was meant to damage your image only amplifies the truth of who you are, highlighting your steadiness, honesty, and clarity. Their actions, designed to intimidate or confuse, instead serve as proof of their obsession and instability. People around them start noticing the pattern. They see someone overinvested, desperate, and constantly overcompensating, and their natural response is to pull away, question motives, or simply stop listening. Meanwhile, your truth spreads effortlessly because it requires no manipulation, no spin, no desperate energy to maintain. Your reality stands firm, visible and credible, while theirs collapses under the pressure of their own lies. The world begins to sense who the real threat is, and it's not you. Even subtle interactions work in your favor. Each failed scheme, each contradictory statement, each frantic attempt to control perception reinforces the narrative that they are unstable, obsessed, and increasingly untrustworthy. People may not consciously realize why, but they start rooting against them and sympathizing with you. The imbalance is obvious. One person is transparent, grounded, and consistent. The other is frantic, inconsistent, and consumed by obsession. Their reputation erodes naturally, organically, as observers piece together the truth from the evidence they provide themselves. What's remarkable is that you don't have to fight or defend yourself aggressively. Their collapse, fueled by their own lies, does all the work. Every failed attack strengthens your position, expands your credibility, and exposes their instability for all to see. In trying to tarnish your image, they have instead highlighted their own madness, and the world takes note. While they flail, your truth grows quietly, powerfully, and undeniably, leaving them isolated, discredited, and overshadowed by the very reality they tried and failed to suppress. Number 11. People see the pattern before they see the person. Their actions are not isolated incidents, they are repeated, predictable, and relentless. Every attempt to target, manipulate, or intimidate you adds another layer to a pattern that is impossible to ignore. Observers don't need to hear explanations or testimonies. They see the behavior itself over and over and begin to recognize the obsession without anyone pointing it out. One act might be dismissed as coincidence or a misunderstanding, but repetition leaves no room for doubt. Patterns speak louder than words because they reveal intent, focus, and consistency in a way that single moments cannot. As these behaviors accumulate, a story writes itself. People notice the same overreactions, the same manipulations, the same intrusive actions happening again and again. It doesn't matter whether you respond or stay silent. The pattern is already visible. Others begin to understand the situation through observation alone. The person behind the actions becomes secondary. The behavior defines them. Their obsession, fixation, and instability are laid bare, and the more frantic or manipulative they become, the clearer the picture grows. Patterns also make it easy for others to connect the dots. Once the repetition is established, their motives, emotional instability, and irrational focus on you become undeniable. It's no longer about a single act of aggression or manipulation. It's about a consistent framework of behavior that proves obsession. People see someone unable to control impulses, trapped in the same cycles, and fixated entirely on another individual. It doesn't take a psychologist to notice human perception naturally picks up trends, and repeated irrational actions are self-evident. The power of pattern recognition lies in its permanence. Even if they change tactics slightly, the previous repetitions have already created a record. Observers retain that mental map and evaluate everything through the lens of the established behavior. By the time they realize what's happening, the pattern has already exposed them, making them appear unstable, obsessive, and even dangerous. You don't have to argue, prove, or intervene. The repeated actions do it all. In trying to control or target you, they have inadvertently written a blueprint of their own obsession, and the world reads it clearly, long before ever fully seeing the person behind it. Number 12, their fear of you is now their public performance. What was once an internal struggle, a hidden panic or paranoia, has now spilled into every interaction they have. Their fear no longer stays private. It shows in the way they speak, the way they act, and the way they respond to situations involving you. Nervous tics, sudden overreactions, awkward pauses, and contradictions in their stories are all signals that everyone around them can see. Every attempt to mask their obsession or manipulate reality becomes an unintentional display of the very fear they wanted to hide. You are the reason for their panic, but the world doesn't focus on you, it focuses on them. Observers notice the tension, the frantic energy, the ways they try too hard to control perception, and they interpret it as instability. Their fear is broadcast like a performance on a stage, and the audience doesn't need a script to understand it. Every nervous gesture and every inconsistent statement becomes evidence of obsession and unbalanced behavior. They might think they're clever, thinking no one sees behind their carefully constructed facade, but every action betrays the anxiety and desperation they feel internally. The more they try to regain control or assert dominance, the more their public performance intensifies. Overcompensation only draws attention to the very traits they hope to conceal. People start to read their behavior like an open book, connecting the dots between their actions, their words, and the patterns of fear-driven obsession. The more they act, the clearer it becomes. They are unraveling, and it is happening in real time for everyone to witness. Meanwhile, your presence remains calm, consistent, and unaffected, creating a stark contrast that magnifies their instability. You don't need to expose them, confront them, or defend yourself. Their own fear, projected outward in an uncontrolled performance, does it for you. The world sees someone unraveling under the weight of their own obsession, and the perception of being psycho or dangerously fixated emerges naturally. You are untouchable in this dynamic, and their unraveling becomes the show everyone else can't stop watching. Number 13. Their lies become self-proof of obsession. Every time they try to manipulate reality, spin a story, or create a narrative against you, they are unknowingly leaving a trail that exposes their fixation. Each exaggeration, every distortion of the truth, and every attempt to control perception becomes tangible evidence of how consumed they are by you. What they intended as a shield or weapon ends up functioning as a spotlight, illuminating the depth of their obsession for anyone paying attention. The lies no longer serve their purpose. Instead, they document their own irrational focus. People around them start to notice the patterns. The repeated twists, inconsistencies, and overreactions signal more than just dishonesty. They reveal an unhealthy, consuming fixation. Observers don't need insider knowledge to see it. Their behavior alone communicates it clearly. The more elaborate the lie, the more it exposes the obsessive energy behind it. What was meant to intimidate or destabilize you now confirms to everyone else that their actions are driven not by reason or logic, but by an uncontrollable compulsion. This self-generated proof extends beyond credibility. It speaks to their psychological state. Attempts to manipulate or frame you become case studies in their obsession, offering a live demonstration of someone consumed by fixation. It's no longer about the content of the lies. They've become irrelevant. The pattern of behavior, the intensity of focus, and the repeated targeting all scream of instability. People begin to recognize that the obsession isn't casual, petty, or harmless. It's dangerous, erratic, and unsustainable. Meanwhile, you remain untouched, unaffected by their narrative. Your reality, calm and consistent, contrasts sharply with the evidence of their fixation. Every failed attempt at control, every exaggeration, every fabricated story reinforces their image as someone unhinged and dangerously obsessed. Their lies, designed to protect their agenda, instead become self-proving documentation of their unraveling. In trying to manipulate perception, they provide the world with the clearest, most undeniable proof of their own obsession, making you the calm center around which their chaos spins uncontested. Number 14. They are psychologically unraveling in real time. You are not the source of the chaos, they are. Every attempt they make to manipulate, intimidate, or control situations is failing spectacularly, and the effort only accelerates their own unraveling. Their mind, consumed by obsession, fear, and frustration, begins to betray them in ways that are impossible to hide. What was once carefully calculated, every move designed to intimidate or dominate, now collapses under its own weight. Lies contradict themselves, manipulations backfire, and every scheme meant to control perception instead exposes instability. The world witnesses it all. Their supposed cunning and dominance dissolve into frantic, erratic behavior that makes their obsession painfully obvious. People notice the overreactions, the contradictions, the desperate attempts to maintain authority, and the cracks quickly become impossible to ignore. Every failed effort reinforces the perception of someone unbalanced and consumed by fixation. Their reputation, credibility, and influence begin to fade in real time, all visible to those who are paying attention. Meanwhile, you remain steady, untouched, and completely clear in contrast. Your innocence, your focus, and your strength are highlighted precisely because of the chaos they generate. Where they crumble under pressure, you stand firm. Where they obsess and overreact, you act with calm and clarity. This stark contrast doesn't need explanation. Your power speaks for itself. Observers see who is truly in control, and the truth becomes undeniable. What's most striking is that their collapse is self-made. Every overreach, every lie, every attempt to dominate feeds the unraveling. They are dissolving under the weight of their own obsession, and nothing you do is required to accelerate it. The exposure is pure and raw. All their control, all their supposed superiority, all their manipulative tactics vanish in real time, and in this unfolding collapse, your stability and power shine uncontested. While they fall apart trying to bend reality, you remain the unshakable center. The undeniable proof that obsession destroys the obsessed far more than the intended target. In the end, the story is crystal clear. Their obsession, their lies, and their desperate attempts to control you have become their own undoing. Every scheme, every manipulation, every overreaction has only exposed their weaknesses, their instability, and their unraveling to the world. They are the architects of their own chaos, and the more they fight to dominate or discredit you, the more visible their obsession becomes. What was meant to intimidate, control, or smear you has backfired spectacularly, highlighting your unwavering strength, focus, and integrity. You remain the unmovable constant in the storm they created. While they collapse under the weight of their own lies, patterns, and paranoia, your calm, clarity, and power shine in stark contrast. Observers notice the differences instinctively, the obsession, the erratic behavior, the overcompensation. It all points back to them, not you. Their credibility fades while yours expands, not through words or explanations, but through the undeniable reality of their unraveling. Every failed attempt to destabilize you serves as evidence of their obsession, and the world sees it unfolding in real time. This is more than exposure. It is proof of a deeper truth. The universe does not need to intervene when someone is consumed by their own fixation. You are the steady presence that reveals their instability, the living mirror that reflects their weaknesses back into the light. Their unraveling is unavoidable, self-generated, and public, while you remain untouchable, centered, and powerful. So remember this: you are not the cause of the chaos. They are. You don't need to fight, argue, or prove yourself. Their lies, manipulations, and obsession do all the work. What emerges is undeniable. They are unraveling. Their obsession is visible, and your power, innocence, and focus are uncontested. In every way that matters, you stand above it all, untouchable and unshakable, while they crumble under the weight of their own making. If you've felt the weight of deception, witnessed obsession unravel, or simply want to stand strong in your own truth, don't keep this to yourself. Hit that subscribe button to join a community that values clarity, strength, and unshakable power. Like this video if it opened your eyes. Comment below.